Get ready for chaos. China's plan in near completion as the U.S. economic crash has spiraled. If you wait by the river long enough, the bodies of your enemies will float by. Hi folks, welcome to the Financial Argument. With their perfectly calculated and executed plans, China did not fail to make this Sun Tzu proverb a metaphorical reality. They've waited long enough and are now watching the bodies of their enemies, symbolized by the different economies, float by them in the river. Now it's their move. As they cross the river to ascend their throne of world domination, they can rescue who they want and push down those who they don't want. If you're wondering what bodies are being referred to, here, look at the chart. China is the only economy that grew in 2020. Let me repeat that again. The only economy. Well, I think by now you can be certain exactly who is waiting by the river. China's economy grew by 2.3% in 2020 despite the crisis, becoming the only one to grow last year while the rest of the world's economies crashed. The U.S. experienced a terrible decline of 3.7%. The list of bodies in the river is long. Numbers from Germany, France, and Italy show that the European economy has already collapsed, with a decline of 11.2%. The UK was also hit hard. India, our greatest hope against China's world domination, and where incredible farmer protests are currently taking place, shrank by 9.9%. Some of you may think that CCP's data is misleading and should not be trusted. This is the easiest way to ignore the facts and turn a blind eye to what's really happening. Even worse is not being aware of the chaos that the impending destruction will create. It's not just a change of who ascends the throne in the game of world domination, it shows that our lives will change permanently too. Just look at how much your life has changed in the last year to understand what awaits you in the future. On the other hand, China's gross domestic product exceeded the 100 trillion yuan threshold in 2020, according to official data released last week. This is a new achievement for China. China's industrial production increased by 7.3% compared to a year ago. When we examine the data, we see a large expansion in industrial production in the 9th consecutive month with the help of strong exports. During this period, 240 billion masks were one of the products that constituted China's export dominance. Except for the Chinese population, they produced and sold 40 masks per person in the world. Mask shipments worth 340 billion yuan accounted for only 2% of Chinese exports. The products that make up these figures are not only masks, protective equipment, hospital clothes, respirators, and health-related products. They include computers and other technological products, as well as products that you need to use to work from home. This means China continued to earn trillions of yuan regardless of whether you were home or out. I talked about the problem of permanently closed small businesses in the United States and the alarmingly high unemployment rate in detail in the previous video. Despite this, China created a total of 11.86 million new jobs last year, surpassing the 9 million target they had set for themselves. Let's pretend for a moment that these are fake numbers and don't matter. Instead, let's focus on what China is doing while we fight with each other and the government continues printing trillions of dollars in the midst of the collapsing American economy. When someone mentions China, we think of an economic giant that's growing larger by the day. It's necessary to take a look at the industrial ecosystem that China has created on a mass scale. This is bigger than just low wages now. Even if other countries employ slaves, they cannot reach China's production capability. China is known around the world as the center of low-cost production. However, understanding the situation is not so simple. Although it's grown by copying Western technology companies, it's far ahead of the West, especially in areas like retail, logistics, and payment systems. There are 904 million internet users in China today, 3 times more than 298 million users in the US. There are 276 million internet users in America compared to 897 million mobile internet users in China. When it comes to mobile payments, the gap is even larger. While mobile payments in the US are marked by 63 million users, China has almost 13 times that, or 765 million users. The size of the total retail industry in the world is approximately $25 trillion. E-commerce sales are approximately $3.5 trillion. The interesting thing here is that China is by far the country with the largest e-commerce volume in the world, with a size of about $2 trillion. China surpassed the United States in 2013 for the first time in e-commerce volume. China's e-commerce volume is so impressive that it's more than 3 times the size of even the USA, which ranks second. China alone represents more than half of the global e-commerce market. The steps taken in the last 40 years that began with Deng Xiaoping have had a great impact on the formation of China as we know it today. We can divide China's evolution in technology, starting from the 1980s, into 4 different periods with 10-year periods. Since 1988, private companies have been permitted to be established in China. One of the turning points for the country was its entrance into the World Trade Organization in 2001. Almost all of the companies we know well today were either established after this date or began to rise after this date. One of the most important things we need to know about China is the hierarchical classification of Chinese cities. Although there's no official list announced by the state of China, analysis in trade, transportation, tourism, and education are often made with consideration to the city tier system. When you offer a new product or service, it's important which tier you target. Targeting Tier 3 and Tier 4 cities has had a big impact on Pinduoduo's success. By utilizing this system, they've avoided the dominance of Alibaba and JD in first and second tier cities, and were instead able to create opportunity for themselves in Tier 3 and 4 cities. Alibaba's dominance on e-commerce and Tencent's social media stronghold make this duo among the 7 most valuable technology companies in the world. So why do you think I'm telling you all this? The subject of the video is not about China's achievements that evoke the jealousy of others. My message is quite clear. China is so powerful in every field that comparing it with the United States is absurd. And it all happened in front of our eyes over the last decades. Yes, America is heading into a social and economic dead end. Watching it play out is saddening. When it comes to China, let us remember that Rome was not built in a day. When it comes to America, all I can say is, Rome did not fall in a day. Although the general consensus is that China will surpass America in the 2030s, this is completely wrong. I share the same view as the scholar Graham T. Allison, who wrote an article on the economic dimension of the U.S.-China competition at Harvard Allison National Interest. Allison claims in the competition between the two countries, China surpasses the U.S. in economic terms. The most striking point in the article is the new measurement system, which both the IMF and the CIA decided to be the best single measure to compare national economies. It shows the Chinese economy is 1/6 larger than America's, $24.2 trillion versus $20.8 trillion in the U.S. But despite this definitive statement from 2 authoritative sources, most of the mainstream press continue to write that the U.S. economy is the world's largest. In the 1990s, it was claimed by a group of fools that China would gradually transition to democracy as they somehow became more enlightened, and the market system could not survive without democracy. It's been clearly understood in the last 2 decades what a false delusion this claim is. It's now clear that China will remain an oppressive regime, dominated by a small minority. Thus, the debate about whether market capitalism would lead to democracy has come to an end. What's even more frightening will be that China will start exporting its regime in the coming period. China has set the foundation for world domination through their economy, with skill and silence. Let's not forget that this plan must also have a military aspect as well. In China, a new Coast Guard law went into effect last week, increasing the powers of Coast Guard forces. According to the law, it's permissible for the Coast Guard to use force against foreign vessels. It's a bold and deliberate attempt to increase conflict in this region, and it shows that the Chinese plan is in the final stages. What we see is China holding the match that can make the whole world, especially America, burn. Now that we understand that the Chinese plan is almost complete, let's move on to the chaos part referred to in the video title. I'd like to paint a beautiful picture for you, but the dark truth is, inevitable Chinese domination is based on the control and Chinesization of our societies. I also want to remind you that morality is not the subject of this video, as I begin to briefly mention some practices going on in China. With the health crisis, very new technologies were implemented in China, so much so that in this period of only 3 months, the Chinese administration benefited from 2,000 new technologies. But China has actually been using very different technologies for a long time. Moreover, it's quite possible that we'll see them in other cities of the world in the near future. Over the last decade, China has introduced a large scoring system by tracking the behavior of its citizens under what's called social credit. The system gives individuals a reward or punishment according to the points they have. Those who follow the rules set by the state will be rewarded. Those who did not obey the rules would be punished and exposed. While the system determines the scores of individuals, it uses an algorithm that includes extremely comprehensive factors, such as spending habits, social media usage, and your circle of friends. To put it simply, in the same way a bank can blacklist you, states will be able to as well. Those who enter the list will not be able to enjoy many privileges. Even travel and health rights may be restricted. China aims to score all of its citizens by the end of this year. With cameras integrated with artificial intelligence, people will instantly receive points just by leaving their homes. Thanks to these points, Chinese citizens will be classified as either good citizens or bad citizens. Picture the scenario. From the moment you hit the street, dozens of cameras are watching your every move. Everything you do can be analyzed with automatic algorithms, and you're given points. Moreover, it's certain that the system will be implemented all over the world in the near future, so we can say that a dystopian and controlled world awaits us. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There are many different technologies in development that we can't consider yet. There's no way to predict what they hold in store for us. In short, China is already living in the future, and very soon China's practices will spread all over the world, because we will all be made to believe that these are necessary. By whom? By our governments, with their bodies floating in the river waiting to be saved by China, the new ruler of the world. What we experienced in this country in just the last year showed us that in such a situation, the U.S. would enter into deep social and economical chaos of unimaginable proportions. God bless y'all.